people don't need the Ram magazines to tell them that you now have options, you now can go to smaller villages to get lower prices. That's ridiculous. This is a people thing. What we do and what we show people is the difference between the way things a lot of people are doing them and the way we do them. And the way we do them is what enables us to be able to have the time freedom and make videos and travel around and basically live like somebody that has way more money than us, still have the ability to have that time freedom and do the things. So that's what it really comes down to. And it's never been about where to go. It's never been about where to go. It's never been about, I'll tell you what, here's a great strategy, go to these villages and small towns. Here's the challenge and the blind spot with that. Most people that go abroad, retire abroad Ram followers, want to go somewhere dynamic. They want to go to the big cities. They don't want to go to villages. And I say that to say that we're not advocating or saying people should go to villages in order to live well on less. We could easily go to a city. It's just a personal preference of mine. That's why you don't see us on our channel saying, yeah, our strategy is to go to small villages. Yeah, you should go to small villages. That way you can rent for less. And that way you can live at the local pricing structure. We've never said such a thing, never, ever, ever. However, when you know how to do something, when you know and have techniques and strategies that enable you to ferret out the local pricing structure, and then you have other techniques and strategies to implement those local pricing structures, then that's really what you need. You know, if it was just a default and inherent within the location, then all people have had to do all along, in other words, people don't need the Ram magazines to tell them that you now have options, you now can go to smaller villages to get lower prices. That's ridiculous. This is a people thing, and people, the same Ram followers will engage in the same behaviors regardless of where they go.
Even if they go to a village.
Even if they go to a village, regardless means even a village. It doesn't matter where they're going, they will exhibit the same behaviors because they haven't learned. Well, there's two reasons. It's not just that they don't know and haven't learned or haven't taken interest in how to ferret out local pricing structures, but because they haven't made the decision to do so. Because all along they're being told, well, okay, it's too expensive in Lisbon now. Well, let's just branch out and go to these smaller villages. Well, here's what happens with that. We've watched this take place in Ecuador. For 8 years we watched this. And we were in the middle of it, talking to expats, meeting with expats. So this isn't only anecdotal, personal to us. And what happens is that the very first few expats that go there, they'll get lucky and get local prices. But here's what happens. All it takes, especially in a small town or village, is one. And I know that sounds a little fantastic right now, but remember, these are small towns. It doesn't take long for word to get out.
Oh my goodness, no.
Yeah, especially in family cultures where everybody's got 20, 30 cousins, you know, and they all get together and have get-togethers and chit-chat. And the Ecuadorians will tell you. As a matter of fact, we've had some comment on our videos. So we've seen people when the Rams started trying to take the focus off of Cuenca because prices were just going through the roof too quickly, they took the focus and went to Loja and said, okay, well, you know, Cuenca's going to step down and now Loja is going to be the best place to retire in Ecuador. Well, what you saw vloggers going into Loja and titling their videos how to go local and having these ebooks, you know, copycats, having these ebooks saying how to go local, but then you find out that they're paying $600 in rent, and then they
local in Loja.
They deflect it in their videos. Like, well, you know, I could have paid less. You know, I could have paid less, but you know, and they just kind of sweep it under the rug, and that's not
going local.
That's not who you want to be listening to. But as a strategy from the Rams to be now saying, oh, people are complaining. This isn't anything new. By the way, this has happened in Panama, Ecuador, and a lot of other places where as soon as the word gets out that the place is a bubble, the Rams come out and start changing their tune and saying, well, you know, I guess you can't really live in Lisbon now for, you know, your Social Security check. You know, you're gonna need $2,500, $3,000 to come out and all of a sudden say, yeah, you can go to these villages and, you know, remember the locals are living on $1,000. Here's the challenge: 90% of their followers, a great majority, a lot of them, you've got two camps, and you've got the vanity camp that they're not looking for the simple, quiet village life. Number one, they'll never do it. So they want to go to the big city, and to them, comparing to their U.S. metro area is what it's all about. And having the options of a city and all that is it's all about. However, you've got the other ones in other camp that have less money. And so now they're being told they can go to these villages. However, that won't change anything. All it will do is it will simply funnel more traffic to villages, which will, all it's going to do is raise prices in the rest of Portugal, whatever area of Portugal is left at the moment that hasn't bubbled as much as the cities and the Algarve. So, and for people to say, well, I want to get away from tourism, it's not a bad idea in and of itself, but you got to understand that I see a lot of people that go to these RAM interests to ask them where to go, where should I go to avoid tourism. And the very fact that you're doing that, and then they're publicizing content based on that idea,
those areas,
means that traffic will increase to those areas over time, which means that your avoiding tourism isn't going to last. So what it comes down to is how do we do things? How we do them is we don't want to go to a RAM area. We don't want to depend on RAMs because of their agendas. And the only way to really stay out of these circles and these bubbles is to become someone that knows how to do this and has the confidence that their skills and their knowledge and their techniques and their strategies, which aren't super complicated, but if you don't know them, then, you know, it's like you don't know them. It's like going down a street and there's no one-way sign. Well, you don't know that it's one-way, right? Until you see the oncoming traffic. And in a small town, all it takes, and I've said in other videos, is one person from California or Florida or anywhere. They'll show up and say, gee, honey, it's a 3,000 square foot house. It's a 4,000 square foot house, and it's $800. And my gosh, we couldn't do this in California. And they're not going to bat an eyelash. They're just going to rent it. And whereas that house was $400 before they showed up, and whereas maybe the other expats did get houses for those prices, maybe a handful of them or two or three, because they were there before the tourism. But once it shows up, because that's what the RAMs are doing, this is what they do. This is their response. Their response is to simply funnel the traffic outside of the expensive areas so they can accommodate the idea that, well, okay, look, you can go to these areas. And because you hear it from the RAMs, you simply accept it as gospel, that you're going to go outside of these areas where 80 or 90% of people don't really want to go.
Well, the thing too is they say these little areas outside of Lisbon and Porto and Algarve, but they've never been there because they don't say anything about them.
There's a reason why they're not getting to tourism, is because, like, for example, in one place, you'll have people pipe up and say, yeah, you can get rentals for $250 over here. But then when you do the research, you find that it's the highest elevation in all of Portugal. It snows there. It's miles and miles.
It's freezing.
From the beach.
It's cold.
Freezing. It's cold in the summer. And yeah, it's funny because we're sitting here at the beach, right, in Italy, and it's at the end of September and all that, and it's like 80 degrees out here. These videos I was watching like a year or two ago, I don't remember when it was, about this young couple that the guy started an internet business in a niche that had nobody was doing it, right? So of course it took off, and it's just doing millions of dollars, and he's ending up on YouTube making videos about him vacationing on the Italian beaches. So you can skip the first part, but here we are on the Italian beaches. You've heard the story about the man with the Midas touch. It was in response to a genie coming out of the bottle and saying he would grant 3 wishes, and I forget what the 3 wishes was, but one of them was everything I would touch would turn to gold. Well, everything the RAMs touch turned to gold for the RAMs and their groups. then there's the other side of the story where other people just get the short end of the stick. So it's like a PayPal and Facebook, you know, these companies, you know, they're just mammoths. They're just huge. And that's why companies like PayPal have thousands upon thousands of complaints with Better Business Bureaus, but people don't have very few other options they can go to. And that's why these RAMs are able to do what they do, you know, where everything we describe happens within a cycle. And as they start telling their followers to branch out in response to complaints, all they're doing is the Midas touch. In other words, they're just spreading their system, and people wanting to avoid tourism. It's like going to the IRS and asking them how to avoid taxes. You know, if you go to the RAMs and ask them, I want to avoid tourism, you haven't learned anything, because you're just engaging in a process where the RAMs put their Midas touch on it, meaning that their traffic and their followers are going to be seeing that interaction and are going to be following the same footsteps, and they're just basically going to be doing the same thing, and prices will simply rise. How to have a crystal ball, what's going to happen to prices? Well, just watch what the RAMs are saying. All you've got to do is watch what they're saying and what they're doing. Their whole agenda is to sell the property and to take advantage of bubbles. The bottom line is that there has to be a commitment to wanting to do things a certain way, because if all you do is look to avoid tourism, two things. If you're still going to where the crowds are going, but wanting to quote unquote avoid tourism, well, the crowds have already taken all the best spots. So you aren't necessarily, although if you just want to be in the country because you've always wanted to be in the country, that's different. But most of the RAM followers aren't there for that. They're just doing it because everybody else is doing it, and it sounds like the greatest thing in the world to do. Really, it seems to me that you've got to really want to go abroad, and you really got to want to do it as an adventure, and you really got to want to do it to learn something. That means you got to really have a commitment, and a lot of the RAM followers don't really have that. Look at that beautiful, beautiful seascape. My Midas touch is everything I touch becomes doable. And their Midas touch is everything they touch becomes undoable. All except for the upper crust and the people that fall victim to the Gringo vicious cycle, or the foreigner vicious cycle. Many of you watching our videos understand the challenges inherent within living abroad within the scope of what we discuss in our videos. Yet you do watch us and see that we are successful at living abroad on our own terms. And many of you have asked, what are our options? What can we do? Are there any alternatives? Well, we've been working on a solution that we can share with you for several months, and we now have it available. Check out the links below, and as always, thanks for watching our videos. Have a nice day.